Hello and welcome to Should You Play, where we highlight the best and worst aspects of video games, show some spoiler-free gameplay and hopefully help our viewers avoid buyer's remorse.
In this episode we want to talk about Hogwarts Legacy, that is currently available on PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One and Xbox Series X and S. The game has a long-awaited release planned for the Nintendo Switch in November that has everyone nervous about the console's ability to run such a large game.
Hogwarts Legacy is an open-world action RPG set in the wizarding world that was introduced in the Harry Potter books. You play as a new 5th-year student at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry in the 1800s who can see traces of ancient magic that others can't.
This unusual gift drags the player into a whirlwind of dark wizards' ancient secrets and a dangerous goblin villain named Ranrok, who, with his band of loyalists, threatens to destroy the wizarding world by harnessing this ancient magic.
This game, despite a few regrettable omissions like Quidditch and the Chamber of Secrets, has primarily received a great reception and positive reviews.
I'm not sure about everyone else, but I have been waiting for this kind of game since the very first Harry Potter game on PS1. I loved that game, despite its many flaws, and Hogwarts Legacy managed to recapture the sense of wonder that I felt roaming the castle halls and castle grounds, discovering the many secrets Hogwarts had to offer.
Please note that we are reviewing this game solely based on the game's merit alone. We're not going to comment on any controversies surrounding J.K. Rowling. We just care about whether the game is good or not.
There is so much to cover, so let's get right to it and start by talking about the game's performance.
Performance-wise, Hogwarts Legacy runs well. We have played the PS5 and PS4 versions, but we have not played it on the Xbox, so it's best to consult another reviewer on whether or not the game runs well on Xbox consoles, but we have heard no complaints.
We played the PS5 version first and we were pretty blown away about how fine-tuned the game was. I think we just naturally expect big new overhyped releases to end up being a buggy awful mess after countless failures, most recently Redfall and Gollum. But we were pleasantly surprised with Hogwarts Legacy. There was no stutter, pop-in, crashes, glitches, environmental clipping, no lengthy load times or any other common issues that often plague new releases.
The game ran very smoothly on PS5 and the graphics were brilliant. The PS4 version, however, saw a massive downgrade in performance, despite them giving themselves more time to prepare the game for the port. A downgrade for last-gen consoles is to be expected, but we hoped the game would run better on PS4 for the price, to be very honest.
I experienced a lot of stutter, epic pop-in and glitches that have halted quests and I've needed to reload. Also, the loading times are painful on PS4, but hey, as long as the game is fun, which it is, I don't care about those minor annoyances. Some people might care, so I would recommend the PS5 version or the Xbox Series X version, assuming the performance can rival the PS5. But as long as it's nothing game breaking, I'm happy.
Seeing how much the game has been downgraded for PS4 makes us really worried about how this huge game is going to cope being ran on the Switch. We have had instances where big games are fraught with issues like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but at the same time we have had successful releases of big games like Tears of the Kingdom and successful ports of games like Red Dead Redemption.
So I guess it's just going to be a case of cross your fingers and hope for the best. They've had a lot more time to perfect the Switch version, so let's hope the quality doesn't dip too low.
The character customization in this game isn't too bad. There is quite a bit of variety here, but it's far from being the best I've ever seen. You can create quite unique appearances, but there are no variations when it comes to voices. You will always sound like an overly polite, private-schooled, snooty British teenager.
I could very well be able to help you.
Which can make it quite funny at times, but it's mostly off-putting.
The voice acting in the game is my biggest gripe. It's so terrible. There's no emotion behind the line reads whatsoever. There are few characters that have a lasting impact for anything other than being annoying or bland, and when someone is memorable, it's only because their attached quest was so good.
It's difficult to care about the story when you feel no connection with the characters due to bad voice acting. It certainly breaks immersion, as does the incessant verbal prompts from Professor Fig at the start and the line repetition that became a meme for a while.
We know that a patch was issued to solve the repeating dialogue issue, but during our playthroughs, you could hear the same bits of dialogue repeatedly whenever you used flue powder or travelled to Hogsmeade. It was very annoying.
You can't imagine how inconvenient travel was before I invented flue powder.
Furthermore, I was disappointed that you can't speak to NPCs at all unless they are quest givers, and they don't even react to being attacked. On a more positive note, the main villain Ranrok is excellent. When we first meet him, he genuinely does seem intimidating and serious considering he's a small goblin, but he does demonstrate that his power rivals, if not surpasses, that of wizards, making him a formidable foe.
One thing people were excited about before the release was how your choice of house affects the game. At the start, you can choose which house you want your character to be in when you get to the sorting hat after a long tutorial section that feels like it drags on forever. Not sure about everyone else, but I would have much preferred just a normal game introduction, with platform 9 3/4 and getting on the Hogwarts Express, learning basic combat through a short dueling encounter with some bullies or something. Anyways, you answer a few questions about your personality and the sorting hat suggests which house you belong. However, you can still choose whichever house you want to.
There is not much difference when it comes to which house you choose other than a different common room, uniform and a single quest that changes slightly depending on your house. The only other notable thing I can think of is that only Hufflepuffs get to visit Azkaban for some reason. It's nothing special, you literally walk down a hall and talk to a prisoner in the end cell. I'm sorry if you're excited about the idea of going to Azkaban, but trust us, this isn't a spoiler, we have saved you. They completely dropped the ball with Azkaban and the unfulfilled potential is painful.
It's really not worth opting for a full Hufflepuff playthrough over Gryffindor, Slytherin and Ravenclaw for this. That's probably why they gave Azkaban to Hufflepuff. They knew nobody would willingly choose that house. So I would literally choose whichever house you prefer, or do what I did and create 4 playthroughs so that you can see all the common room differences.
Next, let's talk about Hogwarts itself. Grandiose in style and medieval in atmosphere, Hogwarts Castle and grounds are so much fun to explore, providing you don't mind an immense amount of stairs.
The school acts as a central hub where you can freely roam the halls, attend classes, brew potions, grow plants, forge relationships and loot. You can also spend hours customising your room of requirements and solve the many puzzles and secrets that Hogwarts has to offer.
You can stumble across some entertaining random encounters which add to the immersion and world building. For example, you pass 2 enchanted statues of armour, one of which is humming and the other seems annoyed by this. Later, if you pass them again, you will witness the annoyed statue of armour smashing the humming statue to pieces.
Other encounters include spells going wrong and Peeves' mischief making. The classes you can attend to learn spells are initially impressive with cool cinematics and class activities, such as Professor Ronan's first lecture. In this lecture, you participate in the Summoner's Court game that entails using Accio to pull balls and land on a section of the court with the highest number of points.
This was so enjoyable, but unfortunately, the effort behind the lessons noticeably dwindles and learning spells is reduced to simply tracing a pattern and pressing button prompts. It's a shame really, it would have been brilliant if each lesson was unique, but at least it's easier to learn spells than it was in the PS1 Harry Potter game. That was a nightmare.
All in all, the castle is very impressive and huge. The game could have just been set inside the castle itself and the castle grounds, and you would have heard no complaints from me. There is so much to do and collect here. There's moth mirrors, symbol doors, statue puzzles, unlit pyres, Depulso puzzle rooms, Dandelion keys, a lockpicking minigame after unlocking Alohomora, and more. The inclusion of the Room of Requirement massively increases the scope of things to do inside the castle walls.
The Room of Requirement customization massively makes up for the limited character customization options. You can change almost every aspect of your room interior and conjure useful utilities and decorations to make the room your own, which are also customizable.
The controls feel a little clumsy at first, but it just takes some getting used to. You can also change the room's ambience by speaking to Deke. The ambience options are limited, but they do impact the feel of the room. You can have it looking warm and cosy or dark and mysterious.
You can customise the colour and style of all the walls, windows, floors and ceiling, and customise the size, colour and style of decorations and stations you place in the room. There are default colours for the 4 different houses, but if you don't want to stick to the house colours, then there are other colours to choose from.
I was really proud of my Room of Requirement. I had it running like a well-oiled machine, producing all of the essential resources I needed on a regular basis. There are a few ways that you can really get the most out of your Room of Requirement. Make sure you have some hopping pots which auto-generate potions and outfit the room with material refiners that produce moonstone. Additionally, place some potion stations and potting tables to ensure you have a healthy supply of Dittany leaves, Mallowsweet leaves, Wiggenweld potions and combat potions and plants.
There are other things that are useful utilities for the room, such as fertilisers, but the ones Heather outlined are definitely a great starting point. We don't want to accidentally give away some massive spoilers, so the only thing we will say is that the Room of Requirement grows in size as you progress in the game and serves other functions. Moving on to the world itself, I was very impressed with the attention to detail right from the start. It is clear that somebody familiar with the source material was involved in the creation of this game. An example of this is at the start, where we see a carriage seemingly being pulled by itself. However, the moment death is witnessed, Thestrals appear, which is very cool.
This attention to detail is demonstrated with the design of Hogwarts Castle also, and specific name drops and references to familiar wizarding families such as Black and Weasley. Outside the castle you can freely explore the castle grounds and surrounding hamlets, Hogsmeade, the Forbidden Forest and other places further afield, whilst completing the many tasks that can be found in the open world and looting like crazy.
Like Hogwarts Castle, the wider world has field guide pages to collect, demiguise statues and locked doors and moth mirrors to complete, but there are some puzzles outside that you would not find inside Hogwarts Castle, such as hedge mazes, astronomy tables, balloons to pop, ancient magic hotspots, landing platforms, and most notably the Merlin trials.
The Merlin trials have become quite notorious in how pesky they are, since you can't swing a dead cat without hitting a Merlin trial. I've never understood that saying. I mean, who would swing a dead cat? But I digress. There are 95 Merlin trials in the game that grant you increased inventory space, and they are just as annoying as the Korok seeds in Zelda.
Luckily the Merlin trials are normally quite straightforward. Most of the time you just have to destroy objects within the immediate vicinity, guide objects to a goal, match patterns and other fairly simple tasks.
But the world is a joy to explore, and the ability to fly on a broom and mount makes exploration even better. You can cast Revelio from Broomback to show points of interest much further afield than it shows when you are on foot, which is very useful. Unfortunately you can't fly over towns, but I guess this makes sense.
Speaking of towns, Hogsmeade is fantastic. They have really captured the feel of Hogsmeade and included some great elements that adds to the overall world building. You can tip a musician and each time you do, his band expands, which is nice, and you can go to Honeydukes to try some display candy and watch what unfolds.
In terms of questing, some of the quests in Hogwarts Legacy are truly epic. They can be so memorable and challenging, and it really makes up for the monotony of things like the Merlin trials. We absolutely loved the third Keeper Deathly Hallows section of the game with the unique art style, and although we were quite rightly disappointed in that pitiful trip to Azkaban that was hyped up for no reason, we loved the PlayStation exclusive Haunted Hogsmeade shop quest. This quest was really good and creepy.
The anti-goblin Slytherin Sebastian with a chip on his shoulder has an interesting questline and is where you learn the unforgivable spells. You will run into a lot of enemies in the game and that's where the combat comes in.
The combat is by far the best aspect of Hogwarts Legacy. I have heard other reviewers state that the combat feels repetitive and gets boring, but that is so far from the truth, providing you play past the first hour or so of the game and focus on unlocking new spells. Combat is fast-paced live action with creating spell combinations and manipulating the battlefield at its core. It's engaging, exciting, impactful and makes you feel like a total badass. Casting forbidden spells and using ancient magic abilities is so satisfying and they are accompanied by special animations. Also, there's nothing better than pulling off a successful Protego and Stupefy.
Seriously, the combat is one of the best systems we have seen. We're not going to go over each and every spell you can unlock, but there are 7 types of spells in the game. Essential, Control, Damage, Force, Transfiguration, Utility, and Unforgivable Curses. With these spells in your arsenal, you can tailor your combat style. If you want to be stealthy, you can use the utility spell, Disillusionment, to turn invisible, then use the essential spell, Petrificus Totalis, for stealth takedowns.
Or if you are like me and prefer to go in wands blazing, you can use your force and damage spells to fling enemies around the battlefield, temporarily incapacitate foes, and shout cool words like Bombarda and Confringo, which are obviously accompanied by awesome spells that cause explosive and fire damage.
You can create a very chaotic and fun fighting arena using spell combinations, ancient magic throws, combat plants like venomous tentacular and Chinese chomping cabbages. Not to mention that when the ancient magic meter charges up, you can cast some devastating ancient magic attacks that deal incredible damage and breaks enemy shields. These ancient magic attacks are given some excellent animations like slamming enemies into the ground or summoning lightning to strike enemies down.
A lot of the spells are also used to solve puzzles, giving them additional non-combat uses. For example, Lumos is used to guide moths to moth mirrors, the Disillusionment spell enables you to open those eyeball chests, and more. Admittedly, the enemy types are very lacking. There's pretty much just dark wizards, goblins, spiders and trolls with the occasional Inferni encounter. The game would have benefited from a wider variety of foes, but this is a minor gripe of mine. It definitely doesn't undermine how fun the combat is. The enemy shields of varying colours that correspond to spell types adds another layer to combat.
Force spells icons are coloured yellow, therefore if you encounter a foe with a yellow shield, you must use a force spell to disable the shield before you can inflict damage. This is similar to how the Inferni have to be on fire before you can inflict any damage. These things are quite smart and interesting, and it's a shame this did not transfer over to having more enemy types.
So, should you play Hogwarts Legacy? I absolutely loved this game, so I would say yes, but I would also advise people to stick to current gen versions to get the best experience and feel like the pricing is justified.
Despite the fact that I have no interest in Harry Potter or the Wizarding World, I would still say yes, you should try this game at least once. You don't need to be a fan of Harry Potter to appreciate this game for what it is, an open world RPG with magic at the forefront of combat.
Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. I've been Heather.
And I've been Craig.
This is Amalgamingle, and thanks for watching.